The clock on the nightstand ticked loudly in the otherwise silent bedroom. It was nearing 2 a.m., and Daniel's mind refused to settle. His wife, Emma, hadn't come home yet. She had been out with friends, or so she had told him when she left earlier that evening. At first, Daniel didn't think much of it. She had a busy social life, and they had always trusted each other. But tonight felt different. The air between them had been thick with unspoken tension over the past few weeks. Subtle changes that neither of them had acknowledged but both felt. The distance had started small. A quiet dinner interrupted by endless work calls. Conversations that drifted into silence. Her long hours spent away. But now, with Emma gone for hours beyond the time she promised to return, Daniel's unease grew into something he couldn't ignore. He picked up his phone for the umpteenth time that night, staring at the screen. No new messages. No missed calls. Just a blank inbox staring back at him. He had texted Emma twice since 11:30 p.m., asking if everything was okay, but he hadn't received any replies. He tried calling her a few minutes ago, straight to voicemail. She wasn't answering. His thoughts raced as his mind spun between worrying about her safety and confronting the nagging feeling that had been creeping up for a while. Something wasn't right. Daniel had always trusted Emma. They had been together for 5 years, married for 3, and there had never been reason to question her loyalty. She had always been a more social one, the outgoing type who loved spending time with friends. But lately, her late nights and distracted demeanor had begun to chip away at his once unshakable trust in her. Maybe it was his own insecurity getting the best of him, or maybe it was the mounting pressure from their increasingly strained conversations. Either way, he couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. He sat up in bed, his gaze fixed on the phone in his hand. His mind raced back to their last conversation earlier that day. How distant she had seemed, how reluctant she was to even make plans for the weekend. She'd brushed him off with an excuse about work. Work? Again. It was the usual answer lately. It had been weeks since they had done anything together, and Daniel had started to wonder if she was losing interest in him, in their life together. Another hour passed. Still no word. He let out a sigh and set his phone down on the bed, turning off the lamp beside him. Just as his eyes closed, ready to succumb to sleep, the familiar ping of a message broke through the silence. His phone vibrated on the nightstand, a small yet jarring sound that made his heart skip a beat. He reached for it, his pulse quickening. He didn't expect much. Maybe just a quick apology, an explanation for why she was late. But what he saw left him utterly speechless. The message simply read, "I don't think I can keep doing this. I need space. Please don't try to find me." Daniel stared at the text, frozen in disbelief. His breath caught his throat as the weight of the words hit him. This wasn't just an apology or an explanation. It was a final goodbye. His mind struggled to process the reality of what he had just read. Was this some kind of joke? Or had his world just collapsed in an instant? He couldn't breathe. The uncertainty, the fear, the confusion. It all hit him in one overwhelming wave. Emma had just disappeared without a word. And all he had was this cryptic message, leaving him with more questions than answers. The message had been sent, but Daniel still couldn't bring himself to believe it. He reread Emma's words a third time, as if somehow the meaning would change. "I don't think I can keep doing this. I need space. Please don't try to find me." It felt like a slap in the face, each word piercing deeper than the last. She needed space? Was that all this was? A plea for some time apart? Or was it something worse? Something he wasn't ready to face? Daniel's thoughts raced as he sat on the edge of the bed, staring at his phone screen. His heart hammered in his chest, and his hands shook as they gripped the device. What had happened? Where was she? What did all of this mean? There was no explanation, no follow-up text, just nothing. He turned over the words in his head, trying to make sense of them. I need space. Was she seeing someone else? Was that why she had been so distant? The idea gnawed at him. Emma had been different lately, more withdrawn, less present, always distracted when they were together. At first, he told himself it was just work stress, or maybe she was dealing with something personal. But now, the cracks in their relationship seemed so glaringly obvious. Had he been blind? His mind flickered back to the moments when things had started to change. It wasn't sudden. It had been a slow erosion. He remembered how they used to spend every evening together, how they talked for hours about their day, their dreams, their future. They had a connection, something deep, something genuine. But in the last few months, the distance had grown. The phone calls turned into texts, and the texts became sparse. Weekends that were once filled with adventures had turned into quiet nights alone in their apartment. Daniel had tried to fill the gaps, suggesting date nights, small trips, but Emma always seemed too tired, too busy, or just uninterested. Had she been checked out for longer than he realized? Was the relationship always on the brink, and he was too afraid to admit it? The thought that he had failed to see the warning signs left a bitter taste in his mouth. He sat back against the headboard, running his hands through his hair. He wanted answers. He needed to know why. Where was she? Why was she so cold? The silence in their home was deafening, the weight of the message hanging in the air. What did she mean by space? Could they fix this? Or was she already gone, emotionally, if not physically? His thoughts were interrupted by the sound of a ping coming from his phone. He grabbed it instantly, praying it was Emma, a follow-up text offering an explanation, some reassurance. But when he unlocked his phone and opened the message, it wasn't from her. It was from an unknown number. The text was simple, but it hit Daniel like a punch to the gut. "We need to talk. It's Drew." His heart sank. Drew. The name was familiar. Too familiar. He remembered Emma mentioning him a few weeks ago. A co-worker, a guy she had been working closely with on some project. Daniel had brushed it off, convinced that Emma was just being friendly, nothing more. But now, his stomach twisted in knots. Why was Drew reaching out to him? What did he have to say? His fingers hovered over the screen, the words too painful to type. He had to know. He had no choice. What is this about? Daniel texted back, his thumb trembling as he hit send. The reply came quickly, almost as if Drew had been waiting for it. "I know this is hard to hear, but Emma and I have been seeing each other for a while now. She's been planning to leave you." Daniel's world tilted on its axis. The room spun. He felt like he had been punched in the gut. His hands clenched around the phone, his chest tightening as the truth slowly began to sink in. An affair. All those late nights, the unexplained absences, the evasive behavior, it all made sense now. The slow breakdown of their relationship wasn't just his imagination. Emma had been pulling away because she had already found someone else. Drew, the person she'd been confiding in, the one who had been giving her the attention Daniel thought was his alone. He had never been more devastated in his life. The message continued, dragging him deeper into the nightmare he had never wanted to face. "She told me last night she was ready to leave you, but she wanted to do it the right way. I know this isn't easy, but it's time for both of you to move on." The words blurred as Daniel's mind raced. He wanted to throw the phone, to scream, to demand answers, but it felt like everything inside him had gone numb. There was a sick, gnawing emptiness in his chest, and it seemed like no amount of logic could fill it. Emma hadn't just lost interest. She had been living a double life. All those moments when he thought she was just distant or distracted. She had been with him, with Drew. His mind wandered to the past few months. The way Emma had seemed so distant, how she kept her phone hidden from him, how she was always working late. But he had never once suspected she was seeing someone else. How could he have missed it? How could she have been so cold, so calculating? Was this really happening? The thought of confronting her made his blood run cold. How could he even look her in the eyes after everything he had just learned? And what about Drew, the man who had taken what was his? Had he known this whole time? Had Emma been honest with him, or was he just another pawn in this cruel game? His phone buzzed again. Another message from Drew. "I'm sorry you had to find out like this. Emma will be in touch soon." Daniel's hands shook as he read the message. His whole body felt heavy, and yet, at that moment, the weight of the world pressed on his chest, suffocating him. The words didn't feel real, but they were. The truth had been exposed, and it felt like it had destroyed him in an instant. That left me speechless. Daniel's hands trembled as he sat frozen on the edge of the bed, staring at the phone screen in disbelief. The message from Drew had hit him harder than anything he could have imagined. He had known, deep down, something had been wrong, but he never expected it to come to this. An affair, a betrayal, a secret life that his wife had been hiding from him. He tried to grasp the reality of it, but the sharp sting of disbelief kept clouding his thoughts. I know this is hard to hear, but Emma and I have been seeing each other for a while now. She's been planning to leave you. His heart raced as the words danced in front of him. He wanted to scream, throw the phone across the room, demand that Drew explain himself. But for a moment, he simply sat there, processing, as if his mind refused to acknowledge the truth that was unfolding in front of him. She told me last night she was ready to leave you, but she wanted to do it the right way. I know this isn't easy, but it's time for both of you to move on. The finality of it all echoed in Daniel's ears. Move on. It wasn't just a suggestion. It was an ending. It was Drew telling him that the life he thought he knew, the relationship he had trusted, was over. He hadn't seen it coming. Not like this. How could Emma have been so cold? How could she have kept this from him for so long? His mind raced back to the nights he had spent staring at the ceiling, wondering why Emma had become so distant, why her late nights at work seemed to stretch longer and longer, why she had grown quieter, more secretive. But he had brushed it all aside, assuming it was nothing, maybe just work stress, or maybe she needed space. How wrong he had been. The more he thought about it, the more the pieces of the puzzle began to fit together in painful clarity. The late nights, the excuses, the evasive answers. Had it all been building up to this moment? Had he been that blind? Was this really happening? Daniel's hands shook as he texted back. His fingers stiff from the adrenaline and the overwhelming rush of emotions. He didn't even know what he hoped to accomplish by responding, but something inside him pushed him to get an answer, to confront the truth head-on. Why didn't she tell me herself? He pressed send, his chest tight as he waited for the reply. The phone buzzed again. Drew's response came quickly, as if he had been waiting for it. She didn't know how to say it. She didn't want to hurt you, but she couldn't keep living a lie. I know this isn't easy for you, but I think you deserve to know the truth. Emma and I have been seeing each other for months. It was never planned to happen this way, but we've been in love for a while now. Daniel read the message once, then twice. Each time, the words hit harder, their meaning sinking deeper into him like a cruel reality he couldn't escape. He felt a flood of emotions rise up, anger, pain, confusion. And yet, in some strange way, there was a numbness to it all. Was this really his life now? His thoughts were interrupted by another ping. It was another text from Drew, and this time, it was a different kind of message. I'm sorry, man. I truly am. But she's made her choice, and so have I. I just wanted you to know, because I couldn't keep this from you any longer. The apology fell hollow. Drew was sorry? For what? For taking his wife? For destroying everything Daniel had worked for? The anger burned through him now, like wildfire, consuming any remnants of the numbness he had felt just moments ago. This wasn't just a mistake. This was betrayal on a level that Daniel couldn't even comprehend. He stared at his phone, trying to process it all, but it felt impossible. Emma had chosen someone else. She had chosen Drew over him. She had allowed their marriage, their life together, to fall apart quietly, all while hiding the truth from him. Daniel couldn't understand it. He couldn't accept it. How long had this been going on? How many nights had she come home late, and he had trusted her? How many times had she kissed him goodnight, while secretly planning her escape? The pain of it all felt like a punch to the stomach. He dropped the phone onto the bed and stood up, pacing around the room. He needed air. He needed to clear his mind. He walked to the window, staring out at the night sky, the city lights blinking in the distance. His thoughts were a whirlwind, each one more jumbled than the last. He had always thought he and Emma had something special. They had been married for 3 years, but their bond felt much older than that. How could she have done this? Was there something wrong with him? Something that pushed her to Drew's arms? What happens now? Daniel typed the question into his phone, staring at the screen as if the answer might magically appear. He hit send, his heart racing as he waited for Drew's reply. Emma will be in touch. She's making plans to leave, and she's not sure when she'll be able to talk to you. But I think you deserve to hear from her, not me." The message left him paralyzed. Emma was leaving. That much was clear. The truth had been laid bare, and now there was no going back. His wife, the woman he had loved, the one he had built a life with, was walking away, not just from him, but from everything they had shared. He sat back down on the edge of the bed, his mind still reeling. It wasn't just that she had cheated. It was everything. The lies, the secrets, the way she had pushed him away without ever really telling him why. He had been oblivious, too consumed by his own doubts to see the cracks forming in front of him. And now, those cracks had shattered everything. Daniel didn't know what to do next. He didn't know if he was supposed to fight for her, try to save what was left, or just let her go. The one thing he did know, though, was that nothing would ever be the same again. Daniel's mind refused to settle. He had tried to breathe, tried to make sense of a flood of emotions and messages, but it was like standing in the eye of a storm. Nothing made sense anymore. The truth had come crashing down on him with the force of a freight train. His wife, the woman he thought he knew, had betrayed him in the most devastating way possible. The pain was overwhelming, but it was also consuming him in a way he couldn't ignore. He had to know more. He had to dig deeper, even if it meant shattering the last remnants of his fragile trust. He picked up his phone again, his hands trembling slightly as he unlocked it. The conversation with Drew still hung in the air, but now there was a different kind of urgency in Daniel's chest. He had to know the full extent of Emma's betrayal. He needed to understand just how long this had been going on, how deep the lies had run. He opened the text conversation with Drew and stared at the words. "Emma and I have been seeing each other for months." Months. His stomach churned. They had been living in the same house, pretending to be a couple, while Emma had been living a double life with Drew. The thought of it made him feel sick, but he couldn't stop himself. He had to know. He stared at his phone for a moment before making a decision. He dialed Drew's number. He needed answers. He couldn't face Emma yet, not without knowing everything. Drew was the one who had opened this door, and now he had to be the one to answer the questions. The phone rang once, twice, and then there was a click on the other end. "Hello?" Drew's voice was flat, almost resigned. "Why?" Daniel's voice cracked as he spoke. "Why her? Why didn't you tell me sooner?" There was a long pause on the other end of the line. Drew sighed. "I never wanted to hurt you, man. It wasn't supposed to happen this way. It did. Months, Drew. You've been seeing her for months. Were you just waiting for the right time to tell me? Or were you planning to keep it a secret forever?" Daniel's words came out in a rush, the anger rising in his chest. Why couldn't she tell me herself? Why did you have to be the one to send me that message? Drew hesitated, and Daniel could almost hear the discomfort in his voice. "I didn't want to be the one to break it to you. I didn't know how. She's been struggling with this for a while. But the truth is, she's already made up her mind, Daniel. She wants to be with me." The word stung like a slap to the face. "She wants to be with you." Daniel felt his chest tighten. He had known it in some way, but hearing it from Drew made it feel final. Emma had made her choice. There was no going back. "I just don't get it," Daniel muttered, rubbing his forehead. "Why didn't I see this coming? Why didn't she tell me?" Drew was quiet for a moment before he spoke again, his voice softer now. "She tried, man. She really did. But she didn't want to hurt you more than she already had. She didn't know how to say it. And to be honest, I think she thought you'd figure out on your own. But she's been falling out of love with you for a while." The last part hit Daniel like a punch to the gut. Falling out of love. He could barely breathe, the weight of Drew's words pressing down on him. Had he really been so blind? Had Emma stopped loving him months ago, and he just hadn't noticed? The realization felt like a cruel joke. What about all the times we were together? Daniel asked, the words bitter in his mouth. All the moments I thought we were still connected. Was that just a lie too? Drew's voice softened. It wasn't a lie. She didn't set out to hurt you, Daniel. But it happened. She wasn't happy. And neither of you were really talking. She tried to keep up the act, but it was eating her up inside. Daniel let out a sharp laugh, but it was bitter. We weren't talking. No kidding. I've been so wrapped up in my own life, my own work, that I didn't see what was happening right in front of me. I thought we were fine. I thought we were normal. Another pause. Drew finally spoke, a little quieter this time. I know, but she had needs, emotional needs. She tried to get them from you, but it wasn't enough. So she turned to me. I'm sorry, man. The apology meant nothing. The damage was already done. Daniel felt his mind racing, his thoughts tangled in a mess of confusion and hurt. He didn't want to talk to Drew anymore, but he also couldn't stop himself from asking one more question. Why did she do this? Why did she stay with me this long if she was already in love with you? I don't know, Drew admitted, but I do know that Emma's always been someone who avoids confrontation. She doesn't want to hurt anyone, and she didn't know how to leave without feeling guilty. It wasn't easy for her. But the truth is, she wasn't happy. Daniel's breath came out in a shaky exhale. She wasn't happy. The words felt like a dagger in his heart. He had loved Emma with everything he had. He had trusted her. But now, everything seemed like a lie. He didn't want to hear anymore. He couldn't. He ended the call abruptly, his emotions spiraling out of control. He stared at the phone in his hand for a long time, the reality of the situation finally sinking in. The woman he had built his life with, the woman he thought would always be there, had chosen someone else. She had fallen out of love with him and replaced him with Drew. It wasn't just a betrayal that stung. It was a realization that Emma had never been as invested as he thought. He walked through their apartment, the place they had shared, the place that now felt like a ghost town. The walls seemed closing on him, and the quiet felt suffocating. He had always imagined their future together. Vacations, a house, kids. But now that dream seemed so distant. In the days that followed, Daniel couldn't shake the feelings of betrayal and confusion. The truth was out, but the pain was just beginning. Emma had left him, and now all it were questions. Questions that would never be answered, no matter how much he dug. But as he stood there in the middle of the life they had built, he realized something. He couldn't keep looking for answers. He couldn't keep chasing someone who had already walked away. The days following his conversation with Drew passed in a haze. Daniel couldn't escape the images that played out in his mind. Emma and Drew, their secret life together, the love she had for someone else. The apartment, once filled with laughter and warmth, felt cold and empty now. He couldn't even look at the walls without feeling the weight of betrayal pressing in on him. His thoughts were consumed by one question. Why? Why had Emma done this? Why had she stayed in the relationship, pretending everything was fine, when she had been emotionally absent for months? It had been 3 days since the bombshell message. 3 days of trying to get answers, but only sinking deeper into a spiral of confusion and pain. He had texted Emma several times, but she hadn't responded. His calls went unanswered, leaving him to sit in a void of uncertainty. He couldn't let it go. He needed to confront her. He needed to hear the truth from her own mouth. It was a late afternoon when he finally got the chance. Emma walked into the apartment, her steps tentative, as if unsure of what to expect. Daniel had seen her leave this morning, and now she was back. Her eyes flickered to him, and for a brief moment, there was something in her gaze, an acknowledgement, a hesitation. But then it disappeared, replaced by the same unreadable mask she had been wearing for weeks. Daniel, Emma said, her voice quiet, almost apologetic, but there was no warmth in it. It felt hollow. Sit down, Daniel replied, his voice tight, betraying the storm of emotions raging inside him. He was done with the uncertainty, done with waiting. This was it. He needed the truth. Now, Emma hesitated, but she did as he asked, sitting across from him on the couch. The tension in the room was palpable, thick with everything that had been left unsaid between them. Daniel could feel the weight of the last few days pressing on him, threatening to crush him. His hands were clenched into fists at his sides, his entire body tense with anticipation. I need to know, Emma, Daniel began, his voice low but steady, trying to keep his emotions in check. Why didn't you tell me? Why didn't you just end things before this all happened? Emma's eyes flickered to the floor, her fingers nervously tracing the edge of her sleeve. She looked uncomfortable, as though she had expected this moment, but wasn't prepared for it. "I didn't know how," she said quietly, her voice almost breaking. "I didn't know how to say it, Daniel. I didn't want to hurt you." Daniel's heart sank. The words stung, but there was a part of him that was angry, not just at the affair, but at the way she had tried to hide it. "You didn't want to hurt me?" His voice raised, the pain starting to leak through his carefully controlled facade. "How much do you think it hurts to know you've been lying to me this whole time? To know you've been with someone else, Emma?" Emma flinched, but she didn't speak. She just looked at him, her face pale, her eyes filled with a mixture of guilt and regret. But there was no real remorse in her gaze. It felt like she had already made her choice, and that made Daniel's stomach churn. "How long, Emma?" Daniel demanded, his voice rising. "How long has this been going on? How long have you been lying to me?" Emma's breath hitched, and she closed her eyes for a moment, as if trying to gather the strength to speak. When she finally opened them, there was a resigned look in her expression. "It's been months, Daniel. Almost 6 months, I think." It started slowly. "I didn't mean for it to happen. I didn't want to hurt you, but I was falling out of love with you, and Drew—" She trailed off, as if unsure of how to finish. Daniel's heart shattered as he heard the words leave her lips. Falling out of love. The phrase echoed in his mind. How had he missed it? How had he been so blind to the cracks in their relationship? He had known something was wrong, but he never imagined this. 6 months. 6 months of living in the same house, sharing the same bed, while she was with someone else. 6 months, and you couldn't tell me? Daniel's voice cracked, his anger and hurt blending into one overwhelming emotion. "You kept pretending, kept acting like everything was fine, and I was the fool who believed it. Do you have any idea what that does to someone? To know that the person you loved, your partner, your best friend, has been lying to you this whole time?" Emma swallowed, her eyes filling with tears. "I'm so sorry, Daniel. I never wanted it to end like this. I didn't know how to leave. I didn't know how to tell you the truth without breaking you. You deserve better, and I failed you, but I didn't know how to fix it. I was scared." Daniel shook his head, the rage inside him boiling over. "Scared," he repeated bitterly. "Scared to lose me? You think this doesn't hurt? That the truth wouldn't hurt me more than anything you could imagine?" Emma remained silent, her shoulders shaking as she tried to hold back the tears. Daniel felt a strange mix of anger and sympathy for her. Part of him wanted to reach out, wanted to console her, but the other part of him wanted to scream. He had been betrayed by the one person he trusted most in the world. He had given her everything, and she had given him nothing in return. "I don't want your pity, Emma," Daniel spat, his voice cutting through the silence like a knife. "I don't want your apologies. I want the truth. And the truth is, you've already made your choice. You don't love me anymore, and you've been with Drew behind my back. Don't you dare tell me you're sorry. You already made your decision." Emma's face crumpled, and the tears began to fall. She stood up, walking to the window, unable to look him in the eye. "I never wanted to hurt you," she whispered, her voice barely audible. "But you did," Daniel said, his voice raw, stripped of all pretense. "You did, Emma, and now it's too late." There was a long silence between them, the weight of the truth settling into the air like an impenetrable fog. Daniel couldn't stay here anymore. He couldn't pretend everything would be okay. The woman he had loved was gone, replaced by someone he didn't recognize. And the worst part was that he didn't know how to get her back, or if he even wanted to. Without another word, Daniel turned and walked out of the room, leaving Emma standing there, broken, alone in the apartment that used to be their home. The days after confrontation were the longest of Daniel's life. Emma had packed a few bags and left without a word. Her absence felt like a gaping wound in the apartment, a hole that seemed impossible to fill. The silence was overwhelming. Everywhere he looked, he saw reminders of what they had shared. The family photos on the walls, the half-empty closet, the dishes they used to wash together in the evenings. Now it was just him, alone, with nothing but the remnants of a life that had been torn apart. Daniel tried to keep busy, filling his days with work and meaningless distractions, but nothing seemed to erase the pain. He avoided the places they used to go together, the coffee shop around the corner, the park where they had spent countless afternoons. Every memory felt like a knife to his chest. He couldn't escape the truth. He couldn't escape the fact that the woman he loved, the woman he had trusted with everything, had chosen someone else. Drew. The name echoed in his mind like a cruel reminder of his failure. He spent nights lying awake, staring at the ceiling, his mind replaying the moments he had once cherished with Emma, the laughter, the late-night talks, the plans for the future. But now all of it felt like a lie. His heart ached with the weight of it. He wanted to understand why she had done it, why she hadn't been honest with him sooner. But the truth was, he would never have the answers. And that was something he had to accept. A week later, Emma sent him a message. It was brief and to the point. "I'm sorry. I'm really sorry for everything. I hope you find happiness again." There were no explanations, no apologies for the pain she had caused. Just a final attempt at closure. A message that was as hollow as the space she had left behind. Daniel stared at the screen, his chest heavy with a mix of anger, sadness, and something else he couldn't name. He wasn't angry at her anymore. Not in the way he had been during the confrontation. He was angry at himself for not seeing the signs, for not fighting harder for their relationship. But deep down, he knew the truth. Emma had already made her decision long before their final conversation, and there was nothing he could do to change it. He set the phone down and took a deep breath, letting the weight of the past week wash over him. As much as it hurt, he knew he couldn't keep holding on to what was gone. It was time to let her go. It was time to let the pieces of their broken marriage fall where they may. In the days that followed, Daniel began to rebuild. He focused on himself. He took up running again, a habit he had dropped years ago. He reconnected with old friends, the ones who had drifted away when he became too absorbed in his marriage. He found solace in the quiet moments. The morning spent with a cup of coffee and a good book, the evening spent at the gym, the weekend spent exploring the city he had once shared with Emma, now rediscovered as his own. Daniel wasn't sure what the future held. He didn't know if he would ever be able to trust someone the way he had trusted Emma, or if he could ever love again. But what he did know was this. He was starting to heal, slowly but surely, and for the first time in a long time, he felt like he was finding his way back to himself. The pain of losing Emma would never fully fade, but in time, he knew he would find peace. He would be okay, and that was enough for now.